Have you ever felt the tectonic shift beneath your ribs when a single memory, a betrayal by a trusted ally, or the final words of a fallen comrade ignites a cold fire in your chest, demanding action rather than tears? That elemental force is what Darth Vader embraced when he cast aside Anakin Skywalker's hesitations and elevated hatred from destructive impulse to philosophical principle. "Your hate has made you powerful," Palpatine whispered, not as consolation, but as revelation. Hatred, when mastered, becomes the most precise instrument of the will. Unlike blind rage, which scatters like wildfire, true Sith hatred is a disciplined flame that consumes doubts, narrows focus, and forges an unbreakable resolve. Consider the psychological architecture of wrath. Every human emotion carries latent energy, but whereas joy can dissipate in a moment and sorrow can trap you in paralysis, hatred offers an unyielding drive. You transform every slight, every loss, every whispered slight into fuel for your ambition. In the cold calculus of the dark side, emotion is neither good nor bad. It is data to be analyzed, honed, and deployed. Vader understood that to wield hatred as a weapon, one must first dissect it, identify its genesis. Was it fear of abandonment, the sting of deceit, the agony of loss? And then allow that knowledge to guide your strategic response. When he proclaimed, "I find your lack of faith disturbing," it was not mere intimidation, but a precise psychological strike. He exposed the weakness in another's conviction, channeled his disgust into authority, and reshaped the opponent's mental landscape to one of submission. This is the essence of Sith psychology: to see every human interaction as a battlefield of wills, where hatred is not a personal failing, but an objective tool. In traditional philosophies, anger is a vice to be controlled or transcended. Stoics counsel us to meet adversity with equanimity. Buddhists teach the extinguishing of desire and aversion, but Vader inverted these tenets. He recognized that aversion, properly channeled, clears the mind of illusions. When he raises his hand and the room's defenders clutch their chests, he isn't merely exerting force. He is externalizing a controlled projection of inner contempt, using emotion to collapse the perceived barrier between thought and reality. In this way, hatred becomes a form of cognitive sharpening. The world narrows to the target, distractions fall away, and the path forward emerges with surgical clarity. Yet this philosophy demands rigorous self-awareness. No true Sith indulges their hatred indiscriminately, for that would devolve into chaos. Instead, they embrace a disciplined regimen of introspection, confronting every flicker of doubt, every echo of compassion, as a challenge to be reframed. Vader's meditation chamber was not a retreat into numbness, but a consecrated arena where he confronted the ghosts of his past, Obi-Wan's betrayal, Padme's death, the echo of his own failures, and converted each torment into a reservoir of power. Psychologically, this mirrors the concept of radical acceptance turned inside out. Rather than accepting pain to free oneself, Vader accepts pain in order to weaponize it. He becomes, in effect, a living exemplar of Nietzsche's declaration that what does not kill me makes me stronger, but transformed. What wounds me becomes the sharpest edge in my arsenal. This philosophical framework places the individual's will above all else. Emotions are neither shackles nor simply burdens to bear. They are raw material for self-creation. In everyday life, most men fear their anger, hide it, or blame others for it. Vader's genius was to claim ownership of his hatred, to see it as an extension of his agency. He did not say, "I am angry because they harmed me," but rather, "I am anger, and through me it will be done." That existential shift from feeling to being elevates hatred from reaction to identity. It becomes the defining element of one's existence, the constant drumbeat that drives every decision. Of course, such an all-consuming philosophy risks self-annihilation if untempered. Even Vader's breathing mask, that mechanical echo of mortality, reminds him that hatred alone cannot sustain life. He couples it with stern discipline, relentless training, and an unshakable belief in his mission. The eradication of the Jedi, the consolidation of order, the transcendence of weakness. Here lies the psychological paradox at the heart of the dark side. Absolute conviction demands both the fire of hatred and the iron of self-control. Without discipline, hatred devours its host. Without hatred, discipline becomes hollow routine. Vader's path illustrates that true mastery arises at the intersection of these forces, where emotion and reason fuse into unstoppable momentum. In your own struggles, whether in corporate warfare, political maneuvering, or the quiet battles of the mind, imagine harnessing your deepest resentments, not as burdens to overcome, but as torches to light your way. Identify the injustices that sear you, the betrayals that haunt you, and let them become the lenses through which you see your purpose. As Vader stood beside the Emperor, his silhouette carved against the void, he embodied the principle that fear and hatred, when mastered, shape reality itself. Impressive, most impressive, he told Luke, not to praise strength of character, but to acknowledge the potency of directed rage. There is profound philosophical insight here. Strength is not measured by tranquility, but by the intensity with which you transform pain into power. In the end, Vader's hatred was both his greatest weapon and his ultimate prison. He sealed himself from love, from redemption, in exchange for invulnerability. That is the final lesson of Sith philosophy. Every weapon exacts a price, and mastery demands acceptance of your own fate. So as you face your next challenge, be it a ruthless negotiation, an uphill campaign, or the silent battle against your own fears, remember, hatred need not be your downfall. Understand it, refine it, wield it with the precision of a Sith Lord. Let it focus your will, clear your vision, and drive you toward your goal with unrelenting force. But beware, once you have claimed hatred as your ally, you must remain ever vigilant, lest it claim you in return. In that delicate balance of power and passion lies the true art of the dark side, and the path to becoming a force neither mercy nor fear alone could ever achieve. And yet, even as you internalize Vader's creed, transform every wound into a weapon, every betrayal into an edge, you must reckon with the invisible scaffolding that supports such darkness, your belief system. In every universe, the stories we tell ourselves become the lenses through which we interpret suffering and triumph. Vader's story, at its core, is a mythology of chosen identity. He did not drift into hatred. He embraced it with intention, rewriting his narrative from victim to architect. To follow in his footsteps, you must do the same. Begin by excavating your personal origin myths, the tales of past injustice that you've replayed so often they've become gospel. Ask yourself, which versions of why I was wronged still hold me hostage? Which rehearsed grievances have calcified into self-justifying fuel? Pull each memory into the light and assess its true structure. Was that slight truly unforgivable, or have you inflated its importance to bolster your resolve? In that act of demythologizing, you reclaim agency over your own narrative and lay the groundwork for a hatred that is deliberate rather than compulsive. Next, construct a ritual of renewal, a private ceremony that echoes Vader's meditative rigor, without the smoke and steel. At a chosen moment each day, before dawn, in the hush of solitary focus, sit with your list of resentments. One by one, recite them aloud, then close your fist and feel the visceral tension each complaint evokes. But instead of letting anger spiral, visualize compressing that tension into a single point of light in your solar plexus. That concentrated ember is your refined hatred, neither wild nor waning, but contained, potent, and ready to be channeled. Let that ember pulse with each exhale, reinforcing the bond between your emotion and your purpose. In time, you'll awaken each morning, already holding that flame, your resolve pre-ignited for whatever trials await. But remember, even a controlled flame will burn through its vessel over time unless replenished. Vader's power was rooted not only in his own will, but in the doctrines of the Sith, the whispered teachings passed down from master to apprentice. You too must anchor your practice in a living tradition, whether that be the cold logic of strategic philosophy, the disciplined training of martial arts, or the rigorous frameworks of behavioral science. Seek out mentors and texts that challenge your assumptions, that force you to refine your understanding of hatred's mechanics. Study the patterns of those who wielded resentment with devastating efficacy, and also those who fell victim to their own fury, so you know which pitfalls to avoid. This is the apprenticeship of wrath. No Sith ever mastered the dark side in solitude. Each needed the reflective cruelty of a master to temper ambition with insight. As your philosophy deepens, test its limits in controlled experiments. Choose a domain, a negotiation, a competitive project, a high-stakes decision, where stakes are meaningful, but not irrecoverable. Enter with your refined hatred as the driving force. Every planning session, every tactical maneuver, every final decision, consciously informed by that ember in your chest. Observe the outcome with detached curiosity. Did the clarity you gained yield superior results, or did hatred blind you to nuance? Did your opponents flinch before your resolve, or did they exploit the single-mindedness you so prized? Record these findings as data points in your ongoing psycho-strategic journal. Over time, patterns will emerge, the precise balance of hostility and objectivity that grants you advantage without tipping into recklessness. Meanwhile, forge alliances that reflect your philosophy's dual nature. Vader did not rule solely by terror. He bound key lieutenants to him through selective reward and shared purpose. Identify peers whose own ambitions align with yours and engage them not as sentimental friends, but as co-architects of a shared vision. Offer them pieces of your strategy, and in return, invite them to challenge your assumptions. In this crucible of competing wills, your hatred is tested and refined, like steel struck against another blade. Beware, of course, that these alliances never become liabilities. Distribute trust sparingly and maintain contingencies that allow you to pivot should any ally threaten your core goals. Finally, prepare for the ultimate reckoning, the moment when your hatred, like Vader's, risks becoming a tomb of your own making. Every Sith's greatest test comes when confronted not by enemies, but by the ghosts of their choices, the faces of those they destroyed, the echoes of moments when mercy might have yielded different paths. In that confrontation lies the potential for redemption, or for the final dissolution into nihilism. To navigate this crucible, cultivate a counterbalance, an overarching purpose that transcends personal vendettas. For Vader, that purpose mutated into the preservation of order itself, a justification so grand it consumed any lingering pangs of regret. You too must define a mission worthy of the sacrifices you've ordained, a legacy that speaks not only of conquest, but of transformation on a scale that outlives you. Only then will your hatred be more than a weapon. It will be the spark that ignites a paradigm shift in your arena of influence. And so, as the final embers of dusk fade and you stand poised on the brink of your next campaign, feel the disciplined flame within. Know that this is no mere emotional reflex, but the product of rigorous introspection, strategic refinement, and philosophical conviction. Let that flame drive you forward, unflinching, precise, and utterly sovereign. For in mastering the dark art of hatred, you do not surrender to your basest impulses. You transcend them, forging a will capable of reshaping reality itself. And in that crucible of fire and resolve, you become, in essence, the architect of your own destiny, unyielding, unparalleled, and unstoppable.